Hi guys, and welcome back to the podcast. It's been a little while, but we're back, and we're kicking off with Verity Ockenden, the reigning British 5k road champion. She also placed 8th at the World 5k Road Championships, and she's had quite the journey. From achieving the Olympic qualifying standard for Tokyo, but missing out on her Olympic dream, to selling her house and moving abroad to find a new way forwards for her. Verity opens up around her struggles with mental health, bringing a very real and inspiring episode. And as always, if you've been enjoying the show, please be sure to give it a rating and review. It costs nothing but helps me to keep carry on bringing you guys the best guests. Alright, let's get into this. Hi Verity, how are you and welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I'm doing really well. I'm up in Summeritz doing some training at the moment, meeting lots of new people and yeah, training's going well, so I'm very happy.
No, that's great to hear. And, is there anything in particular that you're hoping to target or any reason for this trip at the moment?
Yeah, my only altitude trip last year up here was a really big success for me. I saw like a lot of differences in my fitness and capabilities afterwards. So I think that's something that I'll probably be doing most years, because I know it works for me. And yeah, the aim is to come down in about 10 days' time now and just see what I've got, race really hard.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you say sort of meeting a lot of different people. Is it quite a sort of we're in this together vibe with people from different countries, different teams, or, is there a lot of kind of working together and group sessions or how does it kind of work out?
Yeah, I've actually been really pleasantly surprised by how many people have reached out to me just to get all our easy runs done together and have that bit of company makes time pass a lot quicker. And yeah, when you're short of breath, sometimes it's difficult to chat as you're running along, but it's nice to have someone there to talk to. So yeah, I've had like a lot of the girls who were training for the half marathon in Rome were here when I first arrived, and they were all different nationalities. It was amazing. Real mixed bag of people, but everyone's got the same goals and lifestyle, so it works really well, wherever people come from. Um, yeah, and just lots of, women supporting women, everyone wanting each other to do well. And now it's a lot of athletes, particularly from Australia, who've arrived and they've like really sort of welcomed me into their group and helped me out with stuff as well. So yeah, it's a really nice vibe.
Well, that's brilliant to hear, positive vibes. That's what we want. And gosh, big trip from Australia, I guess. And have you got anyone who you've particularly enjoyed easy running with?
I've done a lot of running with Anne Luijens. She's from the Netherlands. It's really funny because she's actually training for the Paris Marathon at the Olympics. And so she was purposefully seeking out hills because she knows it's going to be a hilly course there. Um, and yeah, some of the runs that I went on with her, I was really not looking for hills. So it's just me sort of hanging on. Um, but yeah, she was really great. We had Dominica Meyer, a German marathoner, who, funnily enough, my coach Chris paced for one of her marathons. So that was a cool little link. Yeah, and actually just yesterday, Catriona Bissett, she's an Australian 800-meter runner. She biked with me for my whole session, like as soon as she'd finished her session, which was just really generous of her. She must have been exhausted, but yeah, she just stayed on to help me out, which was really kind.
Oh no, that's really nice to hear. And do you guys kind of keep up those, I guess, connections that you're making on track and in training outside and sort of in the evenings? Or, how do you sort of pass the time outside of training?
A lot of it has been watching the Europeans together, which is really nice thing to do. It's always really interesting to um kind of cheer for people that other people know and hear the kind of the backstory to their journey from like one of their friends or something. Whereas you might not otherwise have really appreciated that particular athlete. Um, so yeah, just getting kind of all these little stories is really fun. And yeah, cooking together. We've done a few pizza nights and things like that. Just yeah, really helps everyone relax and just have a nice time. Like, I mean, you've got to be having fun while you're doing it.
Yeah, definitely. And no, that sounds like a really great time. And I think you make an excellent point there with it really does bring an extra something when you've got a bit of backstory or you know more about the athlete. You can sort of really get involved on their journey and really share in their kind of highs and lows. So yeah, no, that's really great. And if we move on a little bit for anyone who doesn't know, can you briefly introduce yourself and kind of your athlete background?
I always find it really strange introducing myself, actually. But obviously, I'm Verity Ockenden. I'm an on-sponsored athlete, and I predominantly race 5,000 and 10,000 meters on the track. Uh, I live in Italy, and I do a little bit of writing and a lot of cooking. So that's me, really.
Yeah, a lot going on there. And actually, we did have a couple of listener questions around Italy. So I think that's something we can definitely touch on a little bit later on. And so, a couple of questions to kind of, give a bit of a feel for what's to come. What would you say has been your most significant running moment so far, or just something that stood out to you recently?
This is something that it definitely changes as you go along. Um, I think, previously I would have said something different, but last year was quite a breakthrough year personally for me. It maybe doesn't look like it from the outside on paper, but I think for me winning the British 5K Road Championships was a big moment. Um, just because of the way that I felt racing it, not necessarily um the time on paper or anything. It was just, yeah, I really felt myself, but like a new self. So pivotal moment there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, it doesn't always show through in a race. I mean, in this case, it definitely did. It's, an incredible achievement. But for you, was there anything in particular other than the way you feel that meant that that was, such a significant moment for you? Or, what changed? Can you sort of pinpoint it?
I think um I would have loved actually for it to have been a more competitive race in terms of like the depth of the field, because I know like not all of our fastest 5K runners were there. Um and but I mean that's not something I can do anything about. And so I think just knowing that, regardless of who was there, um I would have raced that way and executed that well um in any scenario was like a big confidence booster for me.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you were ranked second in 2023 for the 5K for the UK. So, I'd say you're definitely right at the top of that 5K list. And so for you, looking to the future, what's your next biggest goal or maybe the next step on your kind of, running agenda?
The next goal, I'll be heading to the track night in Vienna on the 22nd. They've got a really fast 5,000 meters there. Um, so I just want to see how fast I can run. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh I think I can go sub 15. By how much I don't really know. So yeah, we'll
Wow.
see.
No, that's exciting. The 15 barrier coming down.
Yeah.
And with the Olympic qualifying standard, I believe it's 14:48. Am I right?
52,
Oh,
I
okay.
think. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's like in the back of my mind, but it's like a very difficult time to achieve, and I respect that. I think I'm capable of it. Whether I'm capable of it in this race, I don't know.
We'll
Yeah,
see. Well,
I would love to say that that's a goal, but I don't want to um focus so hard on it that, I'm disappointed with, like, I don't know, 2 seconds less or something, because yeah, I think any time under 15 minutes is a great time. I don't want to kind of belittle that
yeah.
just because it's an Olympic year.
Definitely. It is so easy, actually, I guess, kind of as an athlete, when someone targets a time and then there's sort of another time to go for, you can end up running a personal best or have a good race, but then still be disappointed.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, I think just setting my own goals, and if those happen to coincide with kind of the arbitrary goals that other people set, um, then great.
Yeah. Well, we're wishing you all the very best with that. And at the moment, are there any topics in particular that you feel most strongly about in sport, or maybe a running related headline or trending topic that's caught your attention lately?
Ooh, I think probably the thing that really matters to me in sport is looking after the general well-being of athletes, professional athletes. Um, it's something like I've often struggled with my own mental health. And that's been like a big part of my journey and part of my progress towards getting better. Um, I think like it for a long time it was quite taboo to admit that, you had um some mental health things that you need to deal with. And I actually think it's quite normal. It's not a weakness at all. And yeah, I think it's really important to show in the media, especially at events like big championships, that, we're all human. Yeah, we're not machines. And, ask kind questions.
Yeah. Is that kind of from the perspective of media and journalists and kind of trackside interviews and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think people are getting a lot better at doing that. And pe just because athletes, I think, are talking about it more. So it's definitely kind of evolving in the sport, in a really nice way. Um, it's great to see. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny, so much goes into sort of physical health and, people train. And if you think how much you can improve from your baseline to, when you're in peak performance, but then it's like, it's all the same with the brain as well. It's still a muscle, it's still got room to sort of train. And yeah, with a lot of pressure can come a lot of stress. And I think that's something that we can definitely sort of dive into a little bit deeper later on, hopefully. And sort of to close off these opening questions, what would be the number one piece of advice you'd give to yourself at, say, 20?
At 20, I was definitely old enough to be taking it seriously, but I just wasn't at that point. Um, and I'm never gonna kind of look back and, wish I'd been a different person. I am who I am, and things have happened how they've happened. Um, I think it's a very common answer is probably just have a little bit more self-belief. Um, I wasn't like a young star, and so I never really thought, oh, like this is going to be my career. Um, and yeah, I would have loved to just have um that belief in myself a little bit earlier on, get a bit more of a head start. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It can be hard sometimes to have that belief or set those ambitions when maybe the evidence at the time doesn't necessarily point to something, but I think there is definitely that element of patience and long-term progression in a sport like endurance running. And, you've definitely demonstrated that.
Oh yeah. I think the great thing with endurance running is that, you do get better over time, particularly as you age. Like, it's not all over at 30. We've got some great role models like Joe Pavey and my coach Chris Thompson, who've proven that, you can keep going as long as you want to, really. So.
Yeah, definitely. And so if we kind of peel it back a bit and start at the beginning, you came into the sport, or at least based on Power of 10, last year under 17. So, a little bit late. How did you get into the sport and what did that progression look like for you at the start?
I would say getting into the sport, I mean, my mum says that from the moment I could walk, I was always running. So I guess it's been quite a natural thing, just enjoying movement my whole life. Um, Weirdly, she's also a sheep farmer, so I spent a lot of my childhood, I mean, pretty much every day, just um helping her catch the sheep, running about in my welly boots in muddy fields. I think that probably got me a good pair of lungs and strong legs to start with. Yeah. Also, like, my mum was a single mum, so every after school club that was going, I went to, just as a kind of like childcare thing while she was working. Um, and so that meant I was doing like every sport under the sun, whether I was good at it or not. A lot of them I wasn't good at. But I kind of narrowed it down to three things in the end. Yeah, I was interested in ballet, running, and horse riding. And then, yeah, eventually I wasn't really that good at ballet. And so we stopped that. Um, I do really miss the horse riding still, but there did come a time where I stopped doing it when I went to uni, and then running became, I mean, you can't really take a horse to uni. So, like, that's, I guess, how running became the only thing left. And just, yeah, the one thing that I felt I was the best at, and really enjoyed doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I can see kind of similarity between horse riding and running. It's quite, I guess, moving along outside. You've got that sort of rhythmic motion, I suppose. So,
Yeah. Um, I guess I'm quite an adrenaline junkie as well, really. I just like going fast. So whether that's on four legs or with my own two, yeah.
yeah, definitely. And when you went to uni, it seems you went to, was it Swansea Uni, and then you sort of moved out to the States?
Yeah, so I started out doing an undergraduate in English literature and Italian at Swansea, um, which was a 4-year course, and included a year in Italy. So that was, yeah, really fun. Probably distracted me a little bit from the running. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed that. I actually had no intention of doing any further studies after that. Um, but I was recruited out to Lamar University in Texas right as I was going into my finals, feeling quite burnt out from studying. I'd really like studied hard to try and get yeah, good marks at the end. And it was the last thing I wanted to do was study even more. But I mean, when you're offered a full scholarship and the opportunity to travel all over America, just competing and really prioritizing running, it's free education. Who could possibly turn that down? So yeah, so I went, and that was a 2 years master's in English.
Oh, yeah, okay, no, that makes sense. And yeah, final year definitely hits different. So, gosh, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
was it so at that point were you taking running quite seriously at uni here in the UK, or how were you sort of feeling in terms of the level of seriousness and kind of the level you were competing at?
In a strange way, I think my first 2 years at uni, I really didn't take it that seriously at all. It was much more of a social thing. Yeah, and I definitely didn't take care of my body at all. I would just, burn the candle at both ends, out partying, trying to scrape by with my studies and run at the same time. And yeah, um, that's not gonna get you the best results in running. Um, it was only really when I went out to Italy, and I started, I mean, I had a few injuries and yeah, there was a long time where I actually didn't run there at all. But once I found the town running club there, they really were impressed with my natural ability and yeah, really motivated me to get back to it. So I guess it was probably halfway through my third year that I actually started taking it seriously again. Um, yeah, and only I think in my final year that like I won a Bucks bronze medal in the 1500. And that was, I think, what got me the scholarship to Texas in and just what motivated me that like, you know, I am actually good at this, so probably should take it a bit seriously. But funnily enough, I think in my fourth year, though I was so focused on my grades, being disciplined enough to study hard and be in the library um every single day, I think was what helped me be disciplined in running as well. Because my schedule was just set, and so this is the time that I have left for running. And if I don't go now, then I don't go. So yeah, it kind of forced me to do it. Instead of just, oh, I'll go later, or and then you end up not going. Yeah.
Definitely. Sometimes having that something, whether it's a job or studying, it can sort of constrain your time, which forces you to then be more efficient and more effective. So, there can definitely be pros of things that might seem a bit stressful or a challenge or barrier to training, I suppose. And yeah, so then when you went out to the States, I guess, would you say that's where you really kind of came into your own? And, what was your experience of the NCAA and yeah, life out there really?
It was just yeah, a complete step up once I got out there. I think when you're just thrown together um with a bunch of new teammates who are all your level or better, it really makes you raise your game. Um there was, I think initially um there were some difficult moments where people kind of wanted to establish a sense of hierarchy within the team and kind of realizing that that was not really the point, that we needed to work together um, was like a big learning curve for all of us. Um, so that was, I think, really important, like just to learn as people. Um, yeah, but having all of those facilities, um, yeah, and just being able to train like a full-time athlete, yeah, it was really game changing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
definitely. Would you say if you kind of had to pick maybe the best thing and the worst thing about going out to the States? Because I know that's something a lot of people are often considering and thinking about. What would you say?
Best thing is, I think, I mean, I guess it's kind of a double-edged sword. Um, the number of opportunities that you get to race. Like you get to try out as many distances as you want to try out, and you're fully supported through all of that. Um, and you've got your team and your staff cheering you on the whole time, which can bring out the best in you. But also it is a lot of pressure. And when you're not doing well or you get injured, that's kind of hard to take. Yeah. And sometimes it can be a bit too much
Mm.
um for people. You can feel pushed to overtrain. Um so I think it's just you know, getting the balance right and yeah, remembering that, yes, your team are relying on you to be a bit heroic sometimes, but that should never come at the cost of, your physical and mental health.
Yeah, definitely. Were there ever any times where you felt that balance tipping kind of in a more negative direction?
I think for me personally, it was more a question of it wasn't so much pressure from my team or my coaches. They were all wonderful. I was really lucky to have that. But I put a lot of pressure on myself, mostly just due to personal circumstances. My dad was ill at the time, and I was quite worried that I didn't have much time left with him, and I just really wanted to use my running to make him proud. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself to achieve things because of that. Um, and I think, that's something I didn't actually need to do. He was proud of me anyway. So yeah, I think pressure can come from all sorts of weird places. Um, yeah, and learning to kind of control that is really important.
Yeah, definitely. And that must have been really tough being so far away when, something as difficult as that was happening as well.
Yeah, exactly. It was such an adventure that I didn't often feel homesick, but yeah, you do feel that distance sometimes, particularly, if things are happening at home that you feel you can't be there for and you've got no control over. But it's life and things like that do happen, so just gotta try and roll with it as best you can, really.
Yeah, definitely. Rolling with life, that definitely is the way to go. And so when you came back, how was it then entering back onto the British running scene? And, what did you do once your degree was finished?
That I think was almost more like the transition coming back was harder for me than going out there, definitely. Um, I just got really comfortable with having that structure of, all your competitions are lined up for you, all your travel is arranged, this is when practice is, and you live on campus with all your teammates. Um, I mean, it really is quite an easy environment in that sense that you don't have to think, you just show up for everything that you're told to, and you run. Whereas when I came back and I had to make all the decisions myself, I didn't know where to start. um I didn't really know what I wanted. My coach was asking me things like, well, choose the races you want to do, and I just felt completely overwhelmed by things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It definitely
It
is
was,
a bit of a challenge, actually. Sometimes you've got to be really on it, and entries can close quickly, and it's not cheap either, actually. So,
yeah, exactly. The cost. I mean, I didn't really ever find um a job that matched my level of study. I never went into anything related to my degree that was well paid or anything. I was, always just starting off as like a barista and a waitress. And I worked my way up to a sous chef position, which I really enjoyed. But yeah, it was definitely difficult to make ends meet as well. And I think having been in the US, I just did not want to kind of give up on that dream that like just grown out there. So I definitely struggled for a while trying to do the training and pay for everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Was it more of a financial issue, or was it also time-wise and shifts and stuff like that?
I was really lucky to find a restaurant who allowed me to be flexible with my shifts. My head chef has become my best friend. And every time there was a race, she would find someone to cover me for it, and they'd be watching um on a stream in the kitchen and cheering for me. So I was really lucky in that sense. But yeah, I mean, meant a lot of the time I would be in the winter, I'd be training in the dark, or starting a 2 hour long run after an 8 hour shift where I'd just been standing on my feet all day. Yeah, not really eating at the right times. And yeah, there were definitely some really stressful times where I already felt exhausted by my shift. And then I had to go and kind of just flip the mindset onto doing a workout or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very understandable. But I'd imagine that doing that probably built a lot of resilience and kind of strength. And then at some stage on kind of came on board with you. And how did things sort of progress?
Yeah, I it was incredible when On contacted me actually. Um I kind of wasn't expecting it because I had just failed to make the Olympics, and my kind of perception of myself was pretty low. Um so the fact that they saw something in that kind of almost but not quite um thing was just a real boost for me. That happened when I'd moved out to Italy. I'd um yeah, quit my job, and yeah, in a kind of emotional reaction to not making that uh team, and just moved out to Italy. So yeah, it was really a bit of a lifesaver, them coming on board and turning me into an outright professional athlete. So yeah.
Wow. Things do work out, definitely for sure. Wow. So moving out to Italy, quitting your job, that definitely sounds like quite a big life change. Can you talk us through that and kind of the emotional roller coaster at the time?
Yeah, it was just such an emotional decision of wanting to find a way of carrying on my life without without letting my disappointment with running performance kind of control it, I suppose. I wanted
Yeah.
to find something else that gave me joy when things didn't work out with running. And I knew, I mean, ever since that Erasmus year in Italy, um, I'd always wanted to go back. And I just decided, why not now? Yeah, I was really kind of, I think, feeling quite bitter and resentful, really, to be honest, with the whole situation after that Olympic qualification process. And I just wanted something new to completely start again and take my mind off all of those kind of memories.
Yeah.
Um, and I think looking back, maybe it wasn't the most rational choice ever. Um, it came with its own challenges and difficulties, which definitely didn't see any kind of improvements in performance in the long run. In fact, I think initially I kind of went backwards, which was quite frustrating, and I often questioned whether I'd made the right choice in doing that. Um, but I think maybe like 2 years later, I am finally um starting to see kind of the effects of creating that new life, and I'm really glad I did it. Yeah.
No, that's so good to hear. And I mean, sometimes it takes these changes, these big moves, kind of taking maybe the less conventional path to actually put yourself in a place, in a position where you've got the mental space to actually be able to perform your best and be your best kind of person. So, no, that's really good to hear. And has there been anything you think that has changed recently that's enabled you to start kind of gaining momentum in the direction you want to be going in?
I think probably the biggest change, I mean, it's not super recent, but I guess maybe just over a year ago, was changing my coaching setup. So I'm now coached by Chris Thompson, and that's honestly revolutionized things for me. I think I've learned more about myself in the past year than I had like in my entire running career, really. So yeah, it's been really amazing, and it's really exciting to know that he sees so much potential in me. Yeah, so I'm excited about it.
Well, that's so good to hear. I mean, everyone deserves that kind of coach who does see their potential and is able to sort of put the time and effort in. And is there anything in particular that you've learned about yourself that has kind of been maybe that big realization?
I think one of the biggest things that he's very kind of gently taught me to do, and it's a very subtle thing, is to be able to take failure in workouts. Yeah, I mean, when I first started being coached by him, I think I was very fragile mentally. And so I just wasn't like able to try something new or try something difficult, have it go wrong, and then pick myself up again afterwards. It would be like the end of the world for me. If I couldn't do something, and I would take it so personally, and that would be such a kind of just a waste of physical and mental energy, really. So him kind of slowly pushing my boundaries and reassuring me the whole time that it doesn't matter if I can't do it, and just be more curious about what I can or can't do, and understand, why that might be, has been very freeing, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I have like an example from this week. Um, he just really stepped up the level of the workouts. And yeah, one of them, like I was just really rubbish on one of them. Um, and like my first kind of reaction to it was like, oh well, I just I'm just not good enough to do that right now. But then coming back and him explaining actually the real reason why I couldn't do it was not because I can't, it's because I hadn't fueled correctly for it. Um, and that just takes all the kind of self-blame away. Yeah, it's frustrating to know that, if I just like drank my protein shake when I should have, it would have gone differently. It's very frustrating, but it just takes away from that kind of like internalization of like, oh, I'm not good enough to be here doing this. That can kind of gradually build up sometimes.
Yeah, no, definitely the power of kind of rephrasing and reframing is definitely underestimated. And yeah, there normally is a
Yeah,
reason. You know, some people say excuse, but reason, excuse, it's quite a blurred line to be honest. Like things happen for a reason and there's many factors that contribute to the final outcome. Um, and
exactly. Yeah,
yeah, and you mentioned before kind of how mental health something that has played a role in your journey. And would you say that kind of maybe the mental strength that you've gained over the past 2 years is something that's kind of played a role in that for you?
definitely. Yeah, it was a big step for me. to first sign up for therapy.
Yeah.
Um, it was a painful process to begin with that actually, again, I didn't immediately reap the benefits. I mean, and again, that's the same as doing workouts. You're not going to immediately get better. Um, you have to be patient with it. Um, and it can be quite painful. Like doing those mental workouts is painful. A lot of my first therapy sessions would just really drain me, and I actually had to be very careful about when I scheduled them. I mean, if I had a workout after a therapy session, it just like would be impossible. Um, so that was like a huge learning curve. But yeah, I think again, it's probably been 2 years. And I've had two, well, my initial therapist was brilliant. And then the amazing thing that On did last year was to offer me a sports psychologist as part of their athlete program. Um, and again, like we're doing different stuff, but it's been insanely helpful. Um, yeah, I can't recommend it enough. Even if you're not an athlete who has kind of pre-existing mental health problems, I just think there's so much you can learn. Um, so yeah, it's been great. I mean, I started off with a lot of anxiety, um, depression, just lack of self-belief, all those kind of things. And that's not necessarily something that will ever go away. Um, but learning how to manage it, yeah, it's amazing for life, just not just performance. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's so great to hear. And I feel like it takes a lot of strength of character in the first place to make or take those initial steps. But yeah, I think you make so many great points in kind of that long term and just slowly chipping away at things over time and kind of, some problems aren't necessarily going to go away. Same with sort of injuries and mental health. It's all about finding those strategies to manage. And so I guess, yeah, in terms of sort of things, maybe like management strategies, especially from maybe a sports psychology perspective, is there anything that you've found that you've been able to use to kind of enhance your performance or just kind of help?
I think one of the greatest things has been journaling.
Yeah.
Not obsessively, and I by no means write like a long diary entry every day. I just, when I notice myself, starting not to feel so good about myself, um, it can just be like one bullet point before I go to bed of like, what was a good thing I did today? Um, and it can be as tiny as you want, like not even to do with running. I think feeling like you are a good person and liking yourself, just for who you are, like is a great starting point, um, for then like being able to handle how you feel about yourself when you're on the track.
Yeah.
If you can walk away like after a bad performance and just still like think, yeah, but I still like myself. Um, for loads of other reasons, that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And I
Yeah.
guess that being a professional athlete just magnifies some of those kind of self-doubts and self-beliefs that your average non-athlete person would experience because of the nature of kind of comparing yourself, having to achieve and execute specific outcomes.
Exactly. We can end up reducing ourselves to like just this one thing because we're so focused. And yeah, you often forget like all of the other things that you're good at, or just the fact that like you're a nice person who, like makes their friends smile. Whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite non-training kind of get out of the running world relaxation or break that you like to go to?
Yeah, this is actually like my second top tip for mental health. Do some gardening. Uh, yeah, just I think being outside, growing things, like it's so good for you. It's amazing. It's so relaxing, and you just get so absorbed in doing what you're doing that you just shut off that part of your brain that's like, I don't know, giving you the negative chit chat, and or I don't know, like you're not scrolling on social media comparing yourself to people. You're just focused on your task, getting your sunshine in and all of that. Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely get out into nature, get gardening, guys.
yeah,
Okay.
so
And
good for
so
you.
for you, we've got a couple of questions from listeners. Some we've covered, some we haven't. So let's start off with kind of training because we haven't covered that in too much detail. For you,
Mhm.
what's your favorite session?
Um, I was thinking this is actually a really hard one because I don't feel like I've been doing Chris's training program for long enough that much of it has been repeated. Um, but I would say generally it's going to be a kind of tempo session. I find them really kind of meditative. And again, it's the same thing with like the gardening, being just outside for a length of time, a long time, where your mind is uninterrupted. You have to focus completely on yourself. I think it's what's lacking for a lot of people these days. And I just always come back just feeling like I've got rid of all the rubbish that was cluttering at my mind. So good feeling.
Definitely a tempo run definitely takes you through, yeah, takes your mind off whatever's going on in there. And on that note, there's a lot of different definitions of tempo for you, maybe relative to your 5K pace. What sort of pace is a tempo at, and how do you define it?
Um, well, to start with, we were very careful to keep my heart rate fairly steady. At the moment at altitude, we've been kind of starting out at 6 minute pace and then working down to like 5:40 towards the end. And I guess I maybe would be able to go a bit faster than that at sea level. Um, but yeah, it also depends on what else I'm doing that week. So now that we've started introducing a bit more speed work, we're really making sure that the tempo work is quite relaxed so that yeah, I've still got that energy left for a little bit more intensity. It's all about balancing it with what else you're doing.
Yeah, definitely balance is key. Okay, nice. Nice. So it sounds like tempos are quite a staple of your training typically, or is that something you incorporate a lot?
Yeah, I mean, we probably do about one a week, which maybe is not as many as some people.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I definitely kind of feel a little bit weird if I don't do them for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that sort of the shape of a typical training week for you, what does that kind of look like?
So at the moment we're doing 3 sessions a week, which is quite a new development for me. Um, I think I've only just really got to the point where I can handle that. Um, so yeah, I'm quite like excited that I've got to that level now. Um, yeah, so usually like Tuesday we'll be on the track. And then Thursday have a tempo and Saturday another track session. And everything really that goes in between is just about recovery,
Yeah.
really. Um, we do have a long run on Sunday, um, but it's always just about how I'm feeling and yeah, making sure I'm good to hit the sessions.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it does seem that getting the quality really is very important. And is strength training or other kind of forms, maybe like cross training, do they play much of a role?
Um, I've never been like great at doing my gym work. There are things that I've had to introduce to kind of correct weaknesses here and there. And it's definitely something I want to do more of in the future. But at the moment, it's kind of an extra that we don't want to overdo and be tired for workouts. So that's something I think we'll probably focus on a bit more in the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And cross training, I've seen like some really good results from other athletes off cross training, which have just been kind of miraculous comebacks. Um, so I definitely like I think it serves a purpose. Um, but again, I've also like had some times where it's really not worked for me. Probably about a month ago, I was trying to take a little bit of weight off my foot, um, for a small injury, and yeah, got on the elliptical, and it really messed my back up. And like I just couldn't move the next day, so we decided that was not the one. Um, let's not do that. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's just finding what works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I relate to you there. The elliptical screws my back over as well, so I steer well clear of that one.
Yeah, I know. I think maybe, aqua jogging instead gives you a little bit more freedom of movement. But yeah, only if you have to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, and we've got a question on tips for adjusting to a master's specifically in Texas, but let's go sort of just maybe in the States.
Um, do you know, I don't know if they mean study wise. Um, Interestingly, I found kind of the uh difficulty of the classes um like actually not as difficult as my final year of my undergrad, which yeah, it's not really what you expect going out there. And you get a lot of support in America as an athlete. People understand it's a common thing that students are athletes and they understand that you have to prioritize other things. Whereas in the UK, it's not really so common. And I think you wouldn't find quite as many professors who um, would be willing to be flexible with you on that. So, yeah, I wouldn't actually say it's too difficult to adjust academically.
Yeah.
Um, it's just a matter of kind of planning your time well, which kind of gets done for you with your set training times. So yeah, I would say
Awesome.
don't worry too much about it.
Cool. Okay, and how do you stay motivated?
Stay motivated. Oh, eh, yeah, there have been some real times where I've just not wanted to get out of bed at all. It is difficult. But I think, working on self-belief, if you really believe that you can do something, then you'll be motivated to do it. Um, I think probably tangible things that you can do is just keep doing races, even if you're not like perfectly fit. Um, yeah, that will always just keep motivating you to keep working, and giving you that stimulus, um, yeah, of kind of keeping your oar in.
Yeah. No, I think the honesty is refreshing, and I'm sure a lot of people will be reassured to hear that, even people as successful as yourself do experience such challenges.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, like, just being honest with your coach as well, um, or your friends. I mean, there'll always be people who support you and actually believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. And if you, there's no shame in telling them, I don't feel like doing this today, or yeah, I'm really having a bad day. Can you help me? My husband's done that for me on the days where I just couldn't think straight. I didn't want to do any of it. I didn't kind of want to be there at all. And he would just set out like a list of things for me to tick off. Um, and when you've got someone there doing something like that for you, like it helps you get through it even when you're not motivated. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's lovely to hear that you've got him by your side, and definitely lists and prioritizing and stuff can make things and challenges seem a lot more manageable and give some direction in a time of chaos, I guess.
Yeah, I think if you're having one of those days where you don't feel motivated, just picking one thing, like this is all I have to do, and then that will be enough. That's the 100% that I can give today, even if it's not my normal 100%.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, do
I
just do what you can do on any given day.
Definitely. I think that's such an important distinction to make, that 100% or your 100% doesn't have to be the same on each given day. And some days it's totally fine. Your 100%, your best effort, perfect, can look different to what it might look like on a different day, for sure. And kind of,
Yeah.
I guess, along those lines in that area, we've got a question on running life balance and what that looks like for you or how you manage it.
Yeah, I think that's actually ironically something I have found difficult, since becoming professional. And sometimes I really actually do miss my um chef job, just because um yeah, I was forced to structure my day. I had other things to think about. Um yeah, whereas now when it's all about running, that's the only thing that I do. It can become very intense. Um so I think, yeah, um spending time talking to your friends about what they're doing can give you a lot of perspective. Um, yeah, and just having other hobbies, whether it's just reading books, which will just transport you mentally to places that you never even thought about before, um, make you think about other things, doing things like the gardening, taking care of your cooking. You can get immersed in that, which is really important for your running and your general health, as
Yeah.
well. But yeah, just, I don't know, finding joy in all the kind of other aspects of your daily life.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is a really strange situation. I mean, I've not experienced it myself, but having something where your actual being is kind of dependent on your job and it's all immersive. And do you think that maybe in the future, professional athletes or the job of being a professional athlete could sort of incorporate maybe more of a role within the company that they're sponsored by, perhaps, such as, I don't know, maybe some scope for just a few tasks a day or something? Do you think that would be?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's kind of early days with On because they're such a young company. Um, but I do see kind of signs of them moving in that direction. Um, they are interested in helping us develop our um careers post running. and whether that's kind of with them or in developing our skills for something else that we want to do, they're really supportive. So yeah, I think hopefully in the future there will be a much more kind of holistic approach to sponsorship, which is really good to see.
No, that's exciting to hear. And, that it's always good to be part of a young and growing company. And
Mm.
finally, we've got a question on it. It's around being comfy in your own body. So I'm not entirely sure what the full context is, but I assume, yeah, along those lines.
Yeah, that's something that like I have always been conscious of. I think ironically, when I was most uncomfortable with my body was during those like painful teenage years at school when I actually, wasn't a professional runner at all then. I was still like the fastest um person in my school. And that was like the only thing that I was proud of about myself. And the only time I ever felt popular was on sports day when like people who never usually spoke to me would be like cheering me on in the sports day races. But I hated how boyish my body was back then. I just wasn't like everybody else. And now it's kind of a role reversal, really, of knowing that, yeah, I guess I'm maybe one of the more, I would say, like muscular athletes out there. Um, yeah, and I think a lot of people struggle. A lot of female athletes and male athletes actually struggle with feeling like they ought to be leaner. Um, but yeah, I've got comfy with it. There's nothing about my body at the moment that I would want to change. So I just know that that's the way I am, and the reasons that I'm fast have really nothing to do with that. It's, talent and hard work, and being healthy. Um, and that's nothing that I would ever kind of sacrifice for a short-term gain. Um, like I love running and I want to do it for as long as I can. So I know that um yeah, there's no way I'll be taking shortcuts in order to look a certain way or to achieve a certain performance in a short time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great to hear because it definitely is something, especially in the teenage years, especially within sport, that has and still can be such an issue. But yeah, I think the sport does seem to be moving in a more positive direction these days, and yeah, that's always great to hear. And okay, so if we now kind of close off with a couple of quick fire fun questions,
Yeah.
kind of just one answer really. Reading or watching?
Watching.
Sweet or sour?
That one just I can't choose. It's both. I love sweet and sour things. Actually, yeah, like the contrast between them.
Mix and match. Okay. Hot or cold?
Hot. That's why
Stay
I'm
in
used
or
to it.
go out?
Go out.
Crop top or vest?
Crop top.
Spikes or flats?
Uh,
Procession.
by flats, do you mean like carbon shoes
Yeah,
or
let's count them in.
like
Spikes
with
versus non-spikes, I guess.
yeah. For my sessions, I tend to wear carbons
Yeah.
instead of spikes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Oh, okay, yeah. Cats or
Mhm.
dogs?
Um, I have a cat, so I feel really bad saying this, but dogs.
It's okay, he doesn't need to hear this.
Thing, yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, no, thank you so much for coming on and thanks for sharing your story, your journey. I think so many people will be able to take comfort and inspiration from what you've said and wishing you the absolute best with the upcoming season.
Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking about it. And yeah, I hope anyone who is listening can kind of realize that, you can struggle. It can take you a long time. And that does not mean that you're not going to get there. So yeah, keep giving it your all, everybody, and yeah, just see where it gets you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you so much. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, be sure to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. This really helps to get the content out there. And I want to make this podcast the best possible for you. So go follow Fitter, Faster, Happier on Instagram. That's Fitter, Faster, Happier to leave your questions, comments, and feedback, and for updates and guest requests. All the best for the week ahead, guys. Run happy, live happy, be happy.